You're English, correct?
Yeah, big time, yeah.
I'm working on an English character. Would you mind it's called Reginald Poofda.
Oh, David Brent, my liege.
Both versions of The Office are practically comedy institutions at this point. However, these are just 2 of 14 total remakes of the now iconic show. The Office's brand of anxiety-inducing and cringe-laden theatrics has officially taken the world by storm.
Knock, knock. Who's there? KGB. KGB?
We will ask the questions!
What the hell was that?
But how has this show succeeded in remaking itself, crossing cultural boundaries, and amassing fan bases in nearly every culture on Earth? The answer is simple. Middle-class daily grievances are universal.
What is your name, sir?
I am Bill Buttlicker.
Really, that's your real name?
How dare you?
Created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, The Office began airing on BBC Two in July of 2001. It was a near-instant success. The high concept of an overbearing, cringeworthy boss and the poor workaday employees that had to tolerate his antics was a perfectly communicable premise.
The question is, do you feel lucky, punk? Well, do ya? Clint Eastwood.
Spot on.
The series was renewed for a second season and a subsequent Christmas special, before Gervais and Merchant decided to move on to other projects. However, this is where something truly strange happened. The Office's DVD sales were so gargantuan that Hollywood came knocking, wanting to produce an American remake.
A good idea is a good idea forever.
Developed by Greg Daniels, the co-creator of King of the Hill, the American version of The Office used many of the same character archetypes from the British show, but ported them to the idyllically suburban Scranton, Pennsylvania. While the American show lasted significantly longer than the British version, many of the overarching plot details, character relationships, and comedic setups closely resemble the original show. The most obvious being the Jim and Pam will they won't they storyline, which is almost one-to-one with the Tim and Dawn storyline from the original show. Of course, Dwight is essentially Gareth, and the iconic character of Michael Scott is basically the Americanized David Brent. And here's where things take a turn, unlike nearly anything in sitcom history previously. With the meteoric success of both the British and American offices underway, a sharp uptick in interest happened. Different cultures from across the globe all seem to want their own versions of The Office. The first remake outside of the 2 well-known ones was a 2004 German show called Stromberg. This even harder-edged version of the David Brent archetype, named Bernd Stromberg, would be the harbinger of the soon-to-be-developed universe of Office remakes. In 2006, 2 more countries, Canada and France, each got official remakes, with La Job and Le Bureau. For the Canadian show, the regional manager was even named after the franchise co-creator, being given the name David Gervais. Despite the Canadian show only lasting 1 season, the French show ran for 6 years. The genie had been let out of the bottle. The appetite for more Office remakes across the globe had been ignited. Over the next 15 years, 9 more Office remakes would be produced. Saudi Arabia, India, Finland, and the Czech Republic being just a few of the examples. The Office is one of the rare examples of a truly global brand, a show that has a laser focus and is both hyper-specific and universal at the same time. Everyone has had to deal with the frustrating boss or annoying coworkers. Everyone has had an office crush or a break room best friend. The reason The Office translates so well to other cultures is that every burgeoning middle class across the globe has ostensibly the same problems. Therefore, the show can be viewed more as a formula where the only significant variable is the cultural trappings of the country in question. While Stromberg is fairly different from any of the other Offices, due in large part to the fact that it wasn't exactly legally produced, many of the remake series feature episodes that are almost shot-for-shot remakes of the BBC version. In fact, some of the international Office remakes have lines in their licensing agreements that state that the shows must recreate the first 3 episodes of the British show, and then will be allowed to develop off in their own directions. When you step back and examine things from a distance, it doesn't seem like any of this should work. It seems like there should be a loss of the magic that made the original Office culturally transcendent, but it just simply doesn't work that way. The various remakes might not all land in their cultures the way the British or American ones have, but for the most part, they've all been pretty successful. A few of the series ran for 1 or 2 seasons, sure, but even then, they're still funny. And some, like the French, German, and Indian Offices, are very popular. The practice of remaking international films and TV shows happens all the time. The Mexican Breaking Bad, the Russian It's Always Sunny, and the American Old Boy. They are all perfect examples of remakes that have failed to capture the spark of the original piece of material. They all tried to localize the source material, but lost what made the original story so great in the process. That seems to be the key to The Office, however. It's such a simple setup and has so many clearly defined and clearly delineated characters that it actually is possible to localize and replicate. The characters and overarching themes more or less stay the same, and the specific details are what are moved around and localized. From the original receptionist Dawn Tinsley, played by Lucy Davis, you can draw a straight line to Pam Beesly in The American Office, or Anne Veens in Le Job, or Dana in Hamisrad, the Israeli Office. The same can be said for Gareth or Dwight or Ernie from Stromberg or Viking Yetterman from the Swedish office Kontoret. The characters all have the same core tenets and characteristics, but the specific details and hang-ups manifest in highly specific localized details. Like how the Indian office's Jagdeep Chadha organizes a Diversity Day team building exercise that goes horribly wrong, which is obviously very close to the Diversity Day that Michael Scott organizes.
Shalom. I'd like to apply for a loan.
The jokes and cultural biases that are explored in these two scenes are wildly different, but the underlying idea is the same. It all boils down to the boss is culturally insensitive.
How are you?
I just had the longest meeting.
Oh, welcome to my convenience store.
Even though the success rate for the franchises vary from culture to culture, the overall brand of Office remakes shows no sign of slowing down. There's a simple mathematical formula for the broader success of The Office that Gervais, Merchant, and BBC Two have discovered. A winning formula that many production companies would give their right arm to have. You take the basic setups from the original Office, and you port them over to a culture with a rapidly burgeoning middle class, and then hire local talent to tailor the archetypes to the specific region or culture. Then, you just sit back and print money.
What's the ratio of Stanley Nichols to Shrewd Bucks?
The same as the ratio of unicorns to leprechauns.
It's a business model almost unlike anything else ever seen in the history of the entertainment landscape. Usually when something is wildly successful, sequels that have ever-increasing scale and scope are rushed into production. But with The Office, it's not the scale or the size of the stories that matters. It's the specificity. It is the details that stand in for the universal frustrations of everyday mundanity that connects with audiences all over the world. And, in fact, the small scale of the stories actually helps the show. It's cheap to produce, cheap to edit, and doesn't require any special effects. The overhead is low, and the potential upside is huge. Everyone has struggled to rectify their place in life with their hopes and dreams for the future, and The Office provides a clearly defined hierarchy of power. And we, as a global species, can live out a fantasy of getting to make snarky eye contact with the cameraman when something terrible is happening. In real life, we don't have anyone to acknowledge the frictions and frustrations of middle-class ennui. But The Office, in all its forms, holds up a mirror to our collective subconscious and says, "You're not alone," while also submerging a stapler in Jell-O. Well, that's it for this episode. Can you think of another international remake that was better than the original? If so, comment below, and as always, like and subscribe for more Nerdstalgic videos just like this one.